So you should have just seen me scribble very dramatically on this piece of paper the name of this project. And I thought I would just give you a quick word about the planning of the project and realistically the budget. I know I usually just put on YouTube here the sewing bits, the wearing bits, the nice bits, but I also like to talk about the not so nice bits. I usually just discuss it more informally on my Instagram, but I thought today we could have a quick note on it. Because I don't want this video to be a million years long, there's a actually longer, more descriptive video about the planning process for this project, the budgeting and the purchasing of materials on my Patreon. If you'd like to check that out, there is a link in the description box and up here in the cards. There are different tiers you can join, but videos are available to all tiers. The thing I really wanted to mention in the video is that I first looked at this costume and I thought, great, I love it. I love it so much, I'm just gonna make it and I'm gonna wear it and feel great in it. That's all I thought. And then I sat down and started breaking down the costume. So the costume only has 3 pieces. It has a skirt, it has a short jacket, and it has a blouse. That seems really simple, right? But is it really? So this extant garment is actually held at a museum in America. I'm not familiar with the museum or the area or much of the history really, but that's where it's at. I'll leave a link there in the description box. They have a few high quality pictures of the extant if you'd like to see it. But they also have the provenance of it, so they know who made the costume and they know who it was for, which is actually quite rare sometimes. So they actually describe that it was made in 1905 for a lady called Marjorie Merriweather Post, which I think is a lovely name. I did a quick digging around for what I could find about her, and it seems that she was quite rich, which doesn't surprise me because as soon as I started tallying up how many materials I'm going to need for this costume, I started wishing I was quite rich. So first I thought, oh, you only need, you know, a handful of trims and some yardage for the main costume. I started writing down numbers and this is where we're at. I don't know if the camera can focus. That is my scribbled down list, and usually I have a second sit down to think more about the materials, which is what I'm doing now. These are the bare minimum materials. I don't have anything in my stash that is really suitable for this except possibly some trim, interlinings and things like that. So that will help bring down the cost. But I just want to mention that this is an expensive hobby and I'm going to do something that people will probably criticize me for because people in the historical community like accuracy, but whatever. I can't. My initial plan was to buy some wool suiting, which looking at this I thought might be the main material because it's a travel costume, so wool travels well, doesn't crease, and you can spot clean it, and it's also, you know, just generally very good. Even discounted, I couldn't find anything suitable for this, and even discounted wool suiting is quite expensive. I would expect between 13 to 15 pounds per meter at a good discount. So that was immediately out of the way, and that's fine. I'm actually not that fussed about it. The next thing I tried to look for was what sort of other materials I can use for this. I think a suiting would still be the most appropriate and the most versatile fabrics, so naturally I gravitated towards polyester suiting. And I can tell you here that I've got some samples. I still haven't picked the main fabric, but I just wanted to show you, you know, you gotta work with what you can. And so I got some samples of polyester suiting that I'll be able to use. I'm not sure this is quite the right color for it. I have a couple more. I think this might be my best bet. I think this might actually just be plain cotton. So what I want to say with this is, if you're trying to plan a project and you realize that the materials you wish you could use are way out of your budget, that's okay. You can still make a great costume out of polyester, out of cheaper fabrics, discounted fabrics. I love, the only fabrics I really buy are on sale or discounted. So I just wanted to encourage you to really think about alternatives, to not get too bogged down on having to make the, you know, the historical accuracy or the finer details or buy the most expensive fabric. None of that really matters. You can make great costumes out of anything really. And yeah, just full disclosure that I'm likely either going to make this costume out of polyester suiting or cotton. I haven't made a decision yet, but I do need to get started on it. So I'm actually going to start with the blouse, and I've bought some cheap polyester lace for that, and let's pray it gets here soon so I can get started. But meanwhile, I think I can get started on a mock-up. So let's get to sewing. So it's been 17 months. I don't want to talk about it. I suppose I should. I probably should. So this is present day Cat with my wild hair. Please excuse, don't comment. I think it's doing a Stranger Things thing. That footage is from Glasgow over a year ago. When I first picked up this project, I think it was around October, November 2021. So it's been ages. Whatever, I'm here to try and make some sense of this footage and fill in the gaps, which I should have done at the time, but here we are. So this footage you just saw was from ages ago, but I wanted to include it because I went on a little rant about materials, and I thought that's always good to include. But it was also really nice to see with hindsight. Oh, past Cat. If only you knew what was to come. The project has been fun, but it has been an experience. So in this first video, we're going to be tackling the blouse, shirtwaist, top, bodice, whatever you want to call it. This is super beautiful, super lacy. The way that I decided to do this blouse, I'm calling it a blouse. It feels so anachronistic, and I'm sorry, but that's how it's ingrained in my head now. The way I'm going to do is that there's going to be a fitted lining to the bodice part. It's going to be out of plain cotton because that's what I have in my stash, and then it's just going to have a lace overlayer that is looser so that it gives you the pigeon breast front. For this, I ordered a bunch of different laces from Etsy. There'll be links in my Patreon. I'll search them down and post over there. And I will be sewing these laces together into sort of a patchwork of lace and then cutting out my panels from that and making the blouse overlayer. For this, I used the pattern that I already had, which was from a 1903 morning dress I made back in 2020, I want to say. I remember it fit well. It was over the same foundational garments, so it should be fine. It's a really simple pattern. The only real fitting on it is 2 darts, one on each side of the front, and then it's a handful of seams, slap them all together, and then we can move on to the lace. And it was then time to brew one massive cup of coffee. And by that, I mean coffee staining. This is not it, I'm not drinking the same water. Okay, so quick change because I just wanted to show you what happened to the samples. So this is what I'm trying to match. This is a cream cottony kind of trim that I'm hoping to be using. It's not a very intense cream, but all of my lace were like different shades of white and all sorts. And so I decided to try and use coffee staining because I've tried tea staining before and it always had this sort of pink undertone. It might have just been the tea that I was using, but I thought I'd give coffee a go. And these were all in for the same amount of time, and as you can see we have varying results. So coffee staining is actually pretty quick. These were only in for 2 to 2.5 minutes. This I think will work. It needs slightly less. This one will be in for 2 minutes. I think that works fine. This will need slightly less because as you can see it took colour a lot quicker. And then we have a big issue over here, which is this is meant to be the main lace for my blouse. But as you can see, the net took the colour a lot quicker than the actual embroidery on it. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I think this will have to be in for like a minute tops, and then I'm going to rinse them all in the machine to get any excess dye off, and hopefully that will help me get an evenish sort of cream colour across them. I don't know, we'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and start dyeing. Wish me luck. So I decided to hand sew the rows of lace together by hand. I just thought that would give me the nicest result. And then I used the really basic Edwardian blouse pattern over top to cut out the shapes. After all the lace portions were assembled and cut out, I put it all together with simple seams. I think it was French seams to, finish it nicely. And then I basted it to the fitted lining while on the dress form. That was the easiest way to make sure I achieved the shape I wanted. I made sure to get that extra volume in the front, and I kind of pin it into place where I wanted it, gathered it a little bit, and then once you put a skirt and a belt over it, you can sort of adjust that volume as well. The sleeves were made very much in the same way. It's sort of a fitted lining. I can't remember which pattern I used now, it was such a long time, but it was definitely from my stash. So last night I started making some really good progress on the sleeves. It was quite late to film. I hate this not natural light, so I just wanted to show you what they look like. So the sleeves are meant to be this, and obviously mine are not going to be, this isn't going to be super accurate, but it's, as close as I can possibly get. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to have a fitted lining made of the same cotton as the fitted lining for the blouse itself, and then I've sewn types of laces together into a bigger shape. I took the pattern and I added some more so that it could be lightly guided over the fitted lining. But then the sleeve here, you can see it's also gathered to a more fitted band. So then I took these two pieces of lace, sewed them together into one, and then the bottom edge here is going to be gathered and sewn onto this. And then I still have to figure out the bottom bit. So there's going to be more gathered lace into like a flounce here. The satin hasn't arrived yet, so I can't actually make this little trim thing. But that's how it is. And I actually have one on the dress form right now, which I can show you over here. I think it's looking pretty good. So I added a little bit extra from the pattern to make sure that it overhangs like this. And yeah, so I'm gonna get those separated bits into this state and then work on this. This is probably just gonna be a large rectangle of lace that's gonna be gathered down to this. And hopefully then I can baste the lace over layer to the fitted lining and then consider putting in the sleeves. I want to do one final fitting of the blouse before I do that though. Oh, and I also worked on the collar. I should have shown you this a little bit, but it's just two pieces of lace sewn together. I actually think it's going to be too wide for my neck. So this might be set really low and like have this scalloped edge over the top neckline. That might be cute. But yeah, slow progress, but some progress. I used a high tension and a long stitch length on my machine, and that just gathered the lace as I went, which made the process a lot easier. So I've been working on the collar for the last couple of hours, and it was just finished. I just finished it, so I just wanted to show you a little bit what it looked like. So this is the center front. So the collar is halfway attached to the center front and then halfway to the center back. And then this will just overlap and close to the back with hooks and eyes, and possibly maybe a hook and eye on the side to try and keep it a bit more stable. We'll see when I actually try it on. I think the angle here at the front went a little weird when I tried to grab this lace edge at the front. it's gonna have to do. But I had just finished it and I was putting it on the dress form to see what it looked like finished when I realised that as I ironed the collar lining into place, which is the last thing I finished by hand, I accidentally burned a hole in my lace. So it's not too noticeable now. It's a lot more noticeable in person than it is on camera. But what I did was I cut out a little bit of the netting of the lace and I put it into the burnt hole. And then I have this applique of the little bit of lace on top to cover it. I'm really indecisive. I don't know if just doing the net would be enough, but it's quite noticeable. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand stitch this applique down by hand, and then I'm going to add one to the other side just to make sure it matches. I then had to make this lace collar situation. I don't know how I got it around in my head, but when I looked at the extant, it kind of looked like there was an undercollar bit and then there's a finished bound edge of the blouse that sort of sits on top. The Edwardians were very clever in their layering, where things would look like there were several different garments, but it's actually all in one. I decided to make this sort of a separate chemisette kind of thing that would then just be pinned onto a corset or whatever. I didn't like this at all, to the point where now I've just sewn it onto the blouse so that along the neckline, just tacked it down in certain places. And I think it looks fine and works way better than having two separate items. The Edwardians did know what they were doing. So I can't remember the last time I updated you, which is bad. But this has become a long-term project. I think I've been working on this blouse for maybe 3 weeks now. It's been slow going. But I wanted to update you on the things that I've done since I imagine I last spoke to you. So I've bound the neckline in this satin. This is just from my stash. I think the colour matched well enough. And the collar. This is a 2-inch wide strip. This is actually on the bias because of the curves that I sewed with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, then turned over to the wrong side, whip stitched by hand. And then in the actual original bit, there's a little detail here, which is like a curve. And I think they cut it out that way in the original. So instead of binding it, it's shaped like that. But my brain could not compute, and I have very little of the satin left, so I didn't want to waste any fabric like that. So instead I'm going to cut it as an applique, and then I'm going to make like a little applique with some golden trim that's going to be sewn onto here, and then the seams will be hidden by number 1, the lace, and then there's like some soutache braid detailing that I'll be doing. So although it looks nearly finished, it's actually so far from finished. The other thing I've done is that I finished the armhole seam, and by that I just sewed some lace tape over it. It actually didn't need to be finished at all, but whatever. And then I added this little strip of hook and eye tape for the fitting, but oh my god, it was so easy. I think I might keep it. I know that's a bit cheating because the original probably doesn't have it. It was probably hand sewn because it was a really expensive garment. But I imagine maybe ready to wear garments had it. I don't know. I'm gonna take this shortcut just for my own mental health, because why not? And it closes perfectly, so I'm just gonna sew it down and forget it. And then in terms of the other finishings I have to do is I need to baste the lace layer to the under bit here and then gather it to fit. Or maybe not gather it. I might leave it loose because this is worn with a skirt over it, which will gather it anyway. And I still need to secure the lace at the centre front. But that's it. Like I said, nearly done. Nearly done. I did all those things I mentioned in this last clip. I had a bunch of hand sewing left to do, and then it was finally done. And it's been sitting in my wardrobe for like 17 months, never seeing the light of day. So let's have a look at it. Well, and that is it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you were interested in the project, there should be a couple more videos on it. I still have a skirt and the coat to show you. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. I think it turned out really well. Obviously, as I mentioned in the beginning, this isn't meant to be an exact replica. There's no way I could, with the quality of lace that existed in the past, and my budget, and the time, and my skills. So I'm really happy with it. I think it's super cute, and I think I can wear it even with other skirts from the period, because I do have a couple. If you're interested in more about this project, there is a Patreon exclusive video already up that goes through the planning, the gathering of materials. I will also be able to put up the pattern for the coat on Patreon, but not the blouse, because unfortunately it wasn't really a pattern. So, and there'll be links to the lace also on Patreon. I will see you all very soon with more updates and maybe a different project.